A few months back, my mom found my childhood Lego collection that I owned around the early 2000s. And from there, I thought it'd be fun to go through them all and rebuild every set I owned from back then with friends watching. Like, seriously, check out this setup. This is great fun to do in like a bunch of Discord VCs. They're all now displayed on these shelves here, and I want to make a very different kind of video essay going through them all, showing them off, and maybe sharing some stories along the way. I'm going to go through these in order of series, then move on to more miscellaneous builds. It'd probably be easiest that way. Starting with LEGO Star Wars. Don't you find it a little weird that Luke and Anakin have the same last name? I had a lot of LEGO Star Wars sets, despite not being a big Star Wars kid myself, although I did remember Episode 1 being my favorite, and I legitimately don't know if that's a popular opinion or not. To start with some simple ones, we have this yellow spaceship, a brown spaceship, and this, glider ship? I showed this one to a friend once and he said that it looked like a block of chocolate. I think this one is supposed to be an escape pod. On the inside, you insert a C-3PO and an R2-D2 minifigure. Okay, these two characters I remember a lot too. I love R2-D2 in particular, man. Definitely one of my favorite fictional robots, and also probably my personal favorite minifigure. The shape, the size, the sturdiness, the colors, the print, it's just perfect. These droid guys were always great minifigures too, and I have a bunch of them thanks to this little carrying pod vehicle. 7 characters in a build this small has got to be pretty uncommon, right? I think they went up against these Jar Jar men, complete with this capsule that releases these things, and these are some very strange alien steeds. Oh yeah, this is pod racing. This particular set I had to substitute a lot of pieces for, and that's something you might notice if you're familiar with a lot of these builds I happen to be talking about today. Most of these builds are well over 20 years old. I'm honestly surprised just how many of them I've still been able to make, all things considered. Like, I took pretty good care not to lose or destroy my pieces, all things considered, but kid me was still just a kid after all. This one's unique. Something I noticed about a lot of Star Wars sets is that most of them tend to be based on vehicles for whatever reason, although this one is recreating an action scene instead. I left the use of transparent pieces here to make these speeds look like they're flying. Cool TIE Fighter, even I know the name of this one. It's an incredible little build, although I have this issue where it is probably the flimsiest set I own. Like, this base here is supposed to use to stand the thing up, but it just doesn't work. And these wings can pop off really easily too. Another brown ship. There's a lot in this series. Ignore Luke Skywalker with red hair. He's blonde, but I couldn't find his original hairpiece. God, I love LEGO lightsabers so much. This green ship right here doesn't look too remarkable, but it in particular has a lot of sentimental value to me, in that I think it was the first LEGO set I ever owned, and possibly my first exposure to any Star Wars media for that matter too. This guy looks so friendly, dude. I kinda love him. This build is a tall bipedal walker. There's some very odd shapes and pieces used for this one. I kinda love it just for how unique it is. And then finally, by far the biggest Star Wars set of mine, the Millennium Falcon. I owned 3 of these very large sets as a kid, and this was the first one. This is a very iconic ship from the movies, to a point that there are countless LEGO adaptations of it even, but this was the first original one. I remember I got this as a gift from one of my grandparents for graduating elementary school, and it's a set I've always cherished. The top comes off to reveal a pretty detailed interior with lots of little details, tools, and hinges that make it an incredible display piece. The cockpit comes off, it's got this little escape pod. It's a very sturdy build too. Holding this feels like grabbing a giant hamburger. My one issue with it is that the feet are very flimsy, to a degree that as a kid I would barely add them ever. They just get clipped and fall off pretty easily, though they are also easy to put back on. These unique corner pieces along the top and bottom are very cool too. And that's all my Star Wars builds. So the next franchise is Harry Potter. Our first set here is this potion room. Okay, aside from a few characters and proper nouns, I don't really know this series very well, admittedly. And also, in fact, I feel inclined to mention that I know people have a lot of strong feelings towards this series in general these days. I do too, and I don't really engage with it for basically the same reasons everyone else under the LGBT umbrella doesn't. I'm not going into any of that in this video, though. This video is meant to be more of a nostalgic showcase on my end. None of her bigotry was really prominent in the early 2000s, and I was too busy being 8 years old anyway. There are better YouTubers to tackle a subject like that anyway. But yeah, we got like a potion room. The back panel swivels out, which is pretty cool. Up on the top here, we have Draconic Mouthwash and the Buttface twins. Who are these two? This set looks like a bathroom. You know, a pretty big difference about the Harry Potter builds compared to the Star Wars builds is, while Star Wars sets tend to be vehicles from the movies, the ones for this series tend to be more along the lines of dioramas depicting scenes. Apparently, this giant ogre minifigure has a reputation for being particularly ugly and even going for quite a bit, most likely because of that. Seriously though, why does this look like a bathroom? I'll call these two characters Harry Potty and the Dump Troll. Next we have this tiny build. Fun fact, but there's supposed to be a sticker on this revolving wall here, but my dumbass kid self put that on the instructions manual instead. You know, one thing I remember really enjoying about these sets is they happen to come with a lot of fantasy-coded pieces. I've always been much more of a fantasy guy than a sci-fi guy, so all these tan and green walls, gray bricks, keys, treasure chests, jewels, armor pieces, and torches really add a lot to my collection that I enjoyed. Anyway, up here we have Bobby McBlankface, and if you swivel his turban around you can see Xehanort. I couldn't find a copy of Harry's black hair when I was adding him to this set, so I turned him into Blonder Potter instead. Although, wait a minute, isn't that the hair Luke was missing back on the brown ship? Let's swap them real quick, and now we have Raspberry Slaughter Potter. This is another set I had a huge set for, the original Hogwarts Castle. I find this one impressive, if only for the huge amount of tiny details and secrets around every corner that I assume are deep cuts to the movies and books. I guess you could call them chambers of secrets, if you will. The spiral staircase in particular is pretty cool. I think it's also funny how they skimped out at the very end and just had the roof be these two plastic paperish sheets. Again, how the hell were these flimsy things never thrown out? I took such good care of my pieces. The characters included in here are the Hapland Dishwasher, Hermione Stick Ranger, Ron Fishercat, Tumbleman and the Snack, and then finally we have Draco's mouth is full, because he's been at the buffet, and then we have Large Jerry, and then we have Large Jerry Potter. Oh, god damn it. And then finally we have we have Large Jerry Potter. Largest man. We have Large Jerry Potter, and why is that name? Why is that one killing me? Why this minifigure is stupid? We have Large Jerry Potter, and then if you open this up, you also have the Ghost of Christmas Past. Moving on, we have the series I definitely had the most toys for as a kid, Life on Mars. This is an original series to LEGO, not based off any IP or anything, that was made around the time NASA was beginning exploration on Mars for the very first time. And the gist of the set is that you had these humans, the explorers, meeting these aliens, who, by the way, are very brittle, so please don't touch them. Despite the aliens having all these giant, threatening-looking machines with guns and claws, they were actually entirely peaceful towards the humans. And they all worked together, and even shared technology with each other. Yeah, it's a series about intergalactic pacifism. How rare is that? I had nearly every build from this series, and there is definitely more alien representation than humans, so let's take a look at the human ships first. I love the tubes and huge wheels on this vehicle that was meant to roll along the rocky surfaces of Mars. I remember this set did come with small elastic bands that could be hooked between the wheels and the main body part to give the vehicle some satisfying bounce as you rolled it around, but these have since crumbled away. This other vehicle with a giant wheel might be one of the earliest sets I've owned. It's quaint, it's cute. An asymmetrical space rover is kind of inherently cool too. Another thing I love about this series is in particular is that the humans just look so nice and friendly. The biggest human build was the spacecraft, which I'm gonna be honest, is a little flimsier than I remember. This plastic sheet exterior looks cheap, although it does fold away easily to reveal yet another small rover. Okay, so at this point, I think it would be a cool time to reveal kind of a neat gimmick of this series. You might notice this spaceship looks particularly segmented in a way. Well, the reason for that is because you can actually take it apart in big pieces. Modular sets are nothing new to LEGO, but what makes this play feature unique here is that you can reconnect them however you darn well please. Since they all use the same two pieces to connect together, this also includes the alien vehicles that you can click to get them together with, by the way, too. This is a brilliant way to drive home how these two civilizations collaborated. You can make all sorts of crazy combinations out of this. To get to the alien builds themselves, they're some of the coolest and most unique LEGO sets I own. I want to start with these two because of their colors. I think this series in general was kind of notable within the LEGO fandom for introducing new desaturated colors that were referred to with names like Sand Red or Sand Blue. They added a nice splash of color to these machines in a way that makes them colorful and fun, but still feel a little mature and muted in a way. These two are probably the best examples of that. They look like action figures. This blue one right here might be my personal favorite LEGO set. Huge nostalgia points, basically. I've always liked blue more than red as well. I love the metallic-faced Martian inside, and these gun parts and hip rotator things are incredibly cool. You can actually take the upper part off of the legs, you can take the rotary parts off, remove the arms, and then swap them to turn this from a mech into a flying ship. Again with the series and going all in with the modular gimmick. I have these two smaller mechs here too. They're both green and actually don't have any modular elements of their own. Huh, weird. They're kind of outliers now that I think about it. This... I don't even know where to start with this one. It's this massive tan crab-like walker that collects these transparent rocks, which my sister once referred to as girl dinner pieces, and I can't get that name out of my head. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, this thing is stupid. It's the closest I've ever felt to assembling a human centipede. Every time I thought I was done with this build, it wanted me to add just one more part, one more segment, one more piece, one more tiny build to click on to the very end. Given all of these are modular like everything else in the series, but look at this completed build. It's goofy as hell. I both love and hate it. And then finally, the last huge build I had as a kid, and the largest life on Mars set, the Aero Tube Hanger. Now, what you're seeing here doesn't do the build justice, because it originally came with a bunch of these plastic tubes that you hook up to these sand purple pieces. All of these small to mid-sized builds are meant to be connected. And then what you do with these tubes is you hook them up to a big air pump, and then place an alien in the sled and insert it into the slot near the pump, and then when you slam on it, the alien would rocket across the station. I still have these parts, actually, although none of this is set up because they're bulky, they made this thing a pain in the ass to display, and none of this works anymore anyway. It's unfortunate, but again, what can you do when all this stuff is over 20 years old? But yeah, what an amazing, creative, nostalgic set. I love life on Mars. So now on to miscellaneous sets. I'd like to start with these 5 that I feel might be part of the same series. This submarine has some pretty unique yellow pieces, unlike anything else in my collection, really. This here is a cool helicopter. A primarily black build with splashes of yellow and transparent pieces is a bold color scheme, and I love this guy on the inside too. It also comes with a big hook attached by a long string that, almost snapped when I was getting this shot. No, it just fell out. You just gotta put it in. Never pull this out again. These 3 little water vehicles are cute. Not much to say about any of them, really. Besides that, I think they have some really unique transparent pieces, like this big dish or this big golf ball piece. This pumpkin gave me more orange pieces than I would ever need. This is a sturdy little build that has a pretty practical function to it, actually. You can put a tiny tea light inside of it, and it'll shine through the face. It's pretty unique. I wouldn't recommend using an actual flame with this, though. Here's a bunch of other tiny builds. In order, we have a sheep, a guy in a plane, a ninja on a raft. I've always really liked this one, actually. I remember this being one of my earliest sets, too. A police car with monster wheels for some reason. A little submarine vehicle. I always love the colors on this one. Some kind of rock excavation setup. And then we have these 3 builds based on Arctic exploration. This is a man on iceberg, and there's a little spider here. We also got this snowmobile, and then this much larger snow vehicle. This one also came with a polar bear and a scorpion frozen in ice. Then we have this lady on a raft. For whatever reason, the instructions want me to put dynamite on the thing. What is she doing with this raft? Boo! Giant spider. This is an amazingly detailed animal build with bendable legs and everything. I'd hardly call it realistic, but you could probably scare someone pretty seriously with this one. Please don't. This is not a prank channel. These dinosaurs look so bad. Anyway, I still kind of love this set, though. It's a movie set, complete with a cameraman. 2 cameramen, actually. Though I think this one is a separate set entirely. And, oh hey, it's Johnny Thunder, a pretty big original character in the LEGO universe. And now for the final category that I'm going to call Modern Builds and Families Builds. So, it wasn't just myself that got more into LEGO again this year, it was pretty much my entire family. It started on either my mom's birthday or Mother's Day, one or the other, where I gifted her this. These are LEGO succulents, and they're part of a big set of floral-themed builds that are commonly praised for being great display pieces, and having some really creative use of parts. You can rearrange them however you want to. It's a really cool build. So that happened early in the year. Several months later, around late summer or early autumn, we went on a big trip to Florida. This was a huge family vacation that we've been planning for years, and we had a lot of very touristy places we wanted to go for this week-long getaway. It was a lot of fun. One of these places was Legoland, Florida. I have always wanted to visit Legoland since I was a kid, and to finally experience it was a pretty big dream come true for me. It was everything I ever expected it to be, and is now probably my personal second favorite amusement park. The first one is Storyland, New Hampshire, if you're wondering. Predictably, while we were there, the entire family picked up a bunch of LEGO sets as souvenirs. So let's go through them. First off was this Santa's sleigh. I'm a big out-of-season Christmas fan. It's an aesthetic I love a lot personally, so seeing this during mid-September stood out to me a lot. This is a pretty dense build for its size, and there's a lot of really cute details to it too, like the back that pops out to reveal reindeer treats. All of the little toys you place in the back, some of which you have to build yourself. The front part is pretty flimsy actually, but these reindeer are really cute. The second one I got was this piñata. This was a pain in the ass to build. I don't think I've ever had to undo steps before because I mistook the wrong color a build was asking for. Like, seriously, how many colors are on this build comes at a price. The center cracking open to reveal candy is a fun detail, though. And the third set I got was this Chinese New Year dragon. This little guy is adorable. I love the colors, and especially his little cloud. This is probably my favorite set I got on this trip. He's just a perfect little guy. The saxophone dragon horns are just wonderful, too. You know, about a 20-year gap between the sets I've shown off previously and these 3, the biggest difference I'm finding myself noticing is that modern sets are a lot more compact and detailed. Sets feel a lot more lean towards accuracy, especially with the licensed builds, leading to more builds that kind of surprised me in their size for how complicated they can be to actually assemble. You know, I've heard some people complain about LEGO being much more expensive than it used to be. It's pretty easy to blame inflation for this sort of thing, but I wonder if this might have something to do with it too. Moving on. Now, I didn't know this, but my sister grew up with Ninjago, a series I know absolutely nothing about. It was pretty after my time. I was more of a Bionicle kid growing up too. And let me tell you, yeah, I'm not talking about these today because I consider them pretty distant from the feel of Lego personally. But I had so many Bionicle sets up growing up as a kid that I could probably make an entire other video on them alone. I also have a lot of really tiny builds I'm not really talking about today either, mostly stuff from advent calendars, and even a Galador figure. Yes, this is a LEGO licensed product. Galador is pretty infamous these days for being probably their biggest commercial flop. But anyway, my sister picked up two Ninjago sets. I think this one she got mostly because it came with her favorite character, Cole. We also have Billy and Zane. The builds themselves are this cool ice bicycle. Remember that Mars vehicle that I said used to bounce as it moved using elastic bands? This does basically the same thing. There are a lot of unique parts on this set too that I've never seen before. I think you're supposed to slam your fist down on this little platform thing and watch the man go flying. There he goes. Okay, admittedly I've wanted to do that ever since I saw Orange put this on our shelf, and I'm a little disappointed. So some of these were ordered after our Legoland trip too, and this was one of them. It's a cute little owl and hedgehog reading a book. Its head swivels, which is super fun, and a fun fact about Lego magnifying glasses, but they actually magnify. A set my mom bought was this piñata. Yes, the same piñata I bought. We were at two different stores within the park and independently purchased the same set. This little guy just spoke to both of us for whatever reason. We both actually put the eyes on just a tiny bit differently, and I personally don't care who did it quote-unquote correctly. It gives them both a little extra personality, and I like putting them next to each other on the shelf. My dad got a couple. First off is this spaceship, which, again, by my observation, is a lot more compact and detailed than, say, the Life on Mars spaceship I owned. In fact, the front part of this ship is about the size as the one my dad got. And again, look how compact it is. There's a cool detail with this one where you can open up the back and hoist up a flag. It looks cool no matter how you orient it. And then finally... Okay, so my dad's a big superhero guy, so he has two builds based on his two favorite characters, Batman and Doctor Strange. I don't know when Batman got into mechs, but this is a cool little build with tons of posable elements. You could probably do stop motion with this thing. It's an action figure, basically. Oh, and again, look how compact and detailed this is compared to a 20-year-old mech of a similar size. Again, I genuinely think I'm onto something here. It uses so many more smaller and smoother parts to lean more towards being a display piece than a toy. Also, I think this is the first set I've seen in this household to have a minifigure with a human skin tone, which I have very mixed feelings about. I don't know, they just look a little uncanny to me. LEGO kind of does that thing The Simpsons does, where all of its characters are yellow. It's amazing for diversity, as it's a pretty neutral color that doesn't overtly code a character. Even the licensed characters were yellow at first. This is another example of the company leaning more towards accuracy in my eyes. And then our final set is Doctor Strange in front of a portal. I don't know how common using a plastic little piece like this for a cape is, but I actually really like this over the little cloth ones. It's much sturdier, and by default, they can just put it in a much better, more dynamic position. I kind of like this change. I'm not really sure what this build is depicting, but it sets a cool scene for how small it is. It looks like he's using magic to open a big portal. And that was a ton of LEGO sets my family owns. I understand this was more of kind of a general show-offy video than like a more traditional video essay, but I hope you guys had fun with it. Anyway, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters, Royal Blot, Sean, Trevor, Firestriker, and Great Wolf. I appreciate all of your continued support as always. And some of you might be excited for what I have in mind for my next video. The Y2K 1.5 update is out. I think that's how they say it, but yeah, I have been looking forward to making a part 4 of that massive video essay for like 5 years now, and I think that is going to be the next project I officially work on, so look forward to that, guys. That's going to be an awesome one. Anyway, I will see you folks later. Thanks for watching.